So, call me crazy, but I want to talk about mental health.
You're crazy.
I could just start up. I learned. Okay, I can cut that part and start over.
Yeah.
I just saw your Monument members post on a case for improving or restoring mental health care in federal prisons, uh,
Yes.
and I have some thoughts on that. Partly because we've had prison reform topics in the past. And so there's a lot of research I've done on this in the past and so forth. And of course, it fits into, people pull out their old briefs and look at the mental health side of it. Um,
Yeah.
so, what I suggested we talk about, and I'll include links in this, is the sort of interesting breakthroughs in the last just few years on nutrition and mental health. Now, my friends hear me as a broken record because I'm always talking about nutrition and healthcare. But
Yeah.
given the prison one looks at mental health in prison, and there's been research on nutritional aspects of that, it gives me an opening to look at nutrition and mental health, which I'd like to discuss. And we talked a little bit about this on email. I'm at a bit of a disadvantage because you're actually a medical professional with
Yeah.
firsthand knowledge, and I'm not. So let you talk for a minute, and maybe you can make some of the comments you've made before to me.
Yeah. Well, we emailed a little bit back and forth before this, and just the whole idea of mental health, mental illness, coming from more of a Christian framework. I actually started getting a degree. I was getting ready for my clinical aspect, an internship with Denver Seminary, going into Christian counseling. And there were a couple of issues that I had with that program. First of all, they were integrationists, what meant they wanted us to choose a secular psychologist and essentially Christianize them, but that I don't know if it's well, actually I would say that that's not possible, that we need to come from this from a biblical perspective. From a healthcare perspective, if I have seen where chemical imbalances or drugs, alcohol, those types of things can affect mental acumen, they can affect your thinking, those types of things. And if it's something like that, then it is a physiological issue first and foremost. Because once you get the chemical imbalances back in balance, once you get them off the medication, once you stabilize them, their mental acumen, their mental thinking, and all of that starts to come back. I mean, you see the commercials on TV. Side effects may include suicidal, homicidal thoughts, things like that. Yeah, well, that can be because your brain does have, you know, synapses and things like that, and you can alter people's thinking through uses of chemicals. And so, if it's something like that, then it is a physiological issue, not strictly a mental issue. I would venture to guess, or one of the other reasons why I left the program for Christian counseling was what are the symptoms of actual mental health, mental illness? I mean, it's all based upon action. There's no physiological testing. I think it comes from wrong thinking. It comes from uh, not. It comes from working against God. I mean, God is the author of life, the author of truth. He is love. He is all of you. Reject God, you've basically rejected life. You've rejected love. You've rejected patience and peace and kindness and faithfulness and self-control because that's the fruit of the Spirit. So once you reject God, all these other things can happen, but that's more of a spiritual issue, not just a mental illness. And so I think we have spiritual illnesses out there that affect us mentally and physically. I don't know if there's really truly something you could define as a mental illness alone.
Yeah. So obviously, there's a lot here I don't know about. for years, I've recommended the work of Justice Fellowship, which is like part of Prison Fellowship originally. And they focused on restitution as a biblical way of dealing with criminal justice in the sense that, and I mention this because the people, criminals, people make mistakes. They're wrongdoers. They break stuff. They do something violent, horrible. How do they get back into society? And where you ask for forgiveness from the people you've harmed, and legally, what you do is you repay them. You restore them to where they were as much as you can. If you broke something that cost $10,000, you pay that $10,000 to discharge your debt. You've earned your way back in society. And that was mentioned as an alternative or to retribution or punishment, but it was mostly an alternative to rehabilitation because rehabilitation was a psychology thing where they say, we're going to come in and rehabilitate these people. It's true they suffered from wrong think. We're going to help them think right. We'll have therapy sessions and we'll try and chase down their wrong thinking and guide them to right thinking. The restitution people said that when people restore their victims, they have earned their way back in society. They've and so that they feel good. And the key thing was basically empirical, that they felt so much better. They basically cured themselves as they absolved themselves, so forgave others, and they asked others to forgive them. And so, that's really Christian. And people who aren't Christian can see the benefit of it just as well. The alternative, or an alternative, is what they say nursing a grudge, which is such a great, metaphor. You've got this grudge, somebody did you wrong, and you keep feeding it. Every
Yes.
day you wish, and pretty soon it's grown into this giant monster, and you're crazy about it. Well, that's a mental health concern that's sort of wrong thinking. So that's what I'd say about that. On the other side, in terms of chemical imbalances, the people now doing research on brain health, brain energy, are arguing these wrong thinking monsters can sort of be fed by poor nutrition by people who have brain energy problems. And that's what I'll go to discuss as we talk about the prison mental health stuff here in a minute.
Yeah, and I would agree. I mean, you eat poorly, that's going to affect, how you think and all that. But that again becomes more of a physiological issue of poor nutrition. Your body is always going to seek what's called homeostasis. It wants to be in balance. Nutritionally, all the chemicals, all of those types of things. And once something is thrown off, your body is going to try to do something to counteract and rebalance whatever's going on. But when we get into the whole idea of wrong thinking, yeah, nutrition can affect your thinking. You just eat sugary stuff all the time, and your brain is up and down, and you have a crash, and you have a rise and a crash. That's going to affect your thinking. You get your nutrition back in order. That should correct the issue. So it becomes a physiological thing. It's not something that requires counseling. It requires a change in your habit, change in diet.
Right.
If you are, even biblically, it says in Ephesians to put away bitterness and clamor and evil speaking and, wrath and all of those things. And so this is something that it doesn't require counseling. It's you put it away. And so I'm not going to get I'm not going to blow up anymore. I can choose that. I can choose to not lose my temper. Nobody makes me mad. I choose to be made mad by somebody else.
Right.
And if you harbor bitterness, which what you're talking about, it can change the chemical makeup in your blood through harboring of bitterness.
Right.
And our bodies were not made by God to do that. Our bodies were made for the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. That's how we're designed. We get outside of that, then we get into the bitterness and the evil speaking. And there's a couple other verses in there that talk about, whatever's true, whatever's noble, whatever is right, whatever's lovely. think on these things. Okay, it doesn't say try not to think about other stuff. It says think about these things. Set your mind on things above. Colossians 3 says, set your mind on things above, not on earthly things. Set them on things above where Christ is. And
Yeah.
so that's what so think about these things. Set your mind on these things. If you don't, then you're going to bring in the bitterness and the wrath and the evil speaking and the
Right.
clamor and all of that.
And that's, an envy wishing. I went to a memorial service last Saturday for a friend I grew up with, and they said such nice things, and he was so successful, so accomplished. I was really sort of upset with him for being so successful compared to me. No, but I mean, I could choose to think many different ways about other people's success and compare myself to whom. And mostly I'm grateful. And they say that people who write out the 5 things they're grateful for every night or talk about it at meals, they're much healthier people because they focus on how lucky, how fortunate we are, not the things that went wrong or things that could have been.